When I heard that Sam and Frodo were going to be in the A Quiet Place prequel, I was like, that's an odd choice, but yes, take all my money.
Shut up and take my money!
Turns out it's not that Sam and Frodo, it's actually Lupita Nyong'o's Samira and her pet cat, Frodo. A prequel to 2018's A Quiet Place and 2020's A Quiet Place Part 2. A Quiet Place Day 1 tells the story of, well, Day 1 of the attacks of the sound-sensitive monsters. Whereas Day 1, and Day 2 by extension, take place 470-ish days after the initial attacks of the monster sound people. Monster sound people? That's not right. It's not just the timeline of the movies that have changed, it's also the location. Whereas parts 1 and 2 took place in, I believe, upstate New York, so kind of countryside, forest, woodlands areas, Day 1 takes place in one of the loudest cities in the world, New York City. It also follows different characters from parts 1 and 2, aside from kind of an extended cameo from Djimon Hounsou's character from Part 2. Day 1 actually follows Lupita Nyong'o's Sam, not, Lord of the Rings Sam, but her Sam, and her cat, Frodo. Mega points for the character names there, guys. Sam and Frodo find themselves in New York City on the day of the attacks. They bump into Joseph Quinn's Eric. He's a lawyer in training, going to law school, I think he mentions that. They bump into each other kind of in the midst of the attacks and help each other basically to get through Day 1 of the attacks in Manhattan, in New York City. That more or less sums up the plot here. There's, in terms of the actual story, that's the plot. There's a bit more character things happening here, especially with Lupita Nyong'o's character. I'm not going to go into any more detail on that because I don't think that was revealed in the trailers, at least not in the trailer that I saw, so I won't say what that is, but suffice to say, she's got some stuff to be dealing with on top of sound-sensitive killer monsters from space. Right off the bat here, both Joseph Quinn and Lupita Nyong'o are amazing in this. They're both very, very good. Some of the scenes, they almost bring you to tears. My partner actually was in tears at some of the scenes when we were watching it. They're both very, very good in this. And it's even more impressive when you think they're there acting afraid for their life. The fear in their face, the tears that are in their eyes and streaming down their face. It's amazing that, people are able to summon that kind of thing, to do that kind of acting, for lack of a better phrase, when you consider chances are on set, they're acting in front of nothing. There is no killer monster in front of them. It's, maybe it's a green screen or, a picture of the monster or a crew member holding a pole with a tennis ball on it for eye lines, things like that. Yeah, it's amazing to think that, they're able to do things like that and put that level of emotion and that level of fear on their face. Yeah, they're both very, very good in this. On top of that, with this being A Quiet Place movie, there's not a lot of dialogue, so they don't have a lot of dialogue to act with. They do a lot of their communication non-verbally, so basically they're acting with their faces, and boy, do they act their faces off. Not face off, faces off. And without going into spoiler territory, when you're the main protagonist of a movie like this and you don't have any family, any children to protect, you're not that concerned with, your own safety or your own life, it does free you up to kind of explore different character traits and different ways of thinking, which is quite interesting and nice to see here. So that was something a little different and unexpected, so points to the filmmakers for that as well. The cat also does a good job. Perhaps it's a descendant of Jonesy from Alien. No? Am I the only one that was thinking that? The look of Day 1 is quite a departure from the other two as well. As I said, this is set in Manhattan. The other two are set in kind of upstate countryside. Right off the bat, the first thing that I was thinking when they announced this was, ooh, it's a prequel. Prequels are inherently flawed. See Furiosa. And then B, it's not directed by John Krasinski, who did the first two movies. That was another point of worry. So, firstly, the prequel problem. Most prequels that deal with characters from other movies are hamstrung right from the start because you know the outcome and the fate of these characters in the future, 2, 3, 4 movies down the line. For example, Furiosa. That suffered from the general prequel problem in that Furiosa's not going to die in Furiosa because she's in Mad Max Fury Road. So any jeopardy that that character's placed in is immediately like lessened because you know she survives. A Quiet Place Day One kind of skillfully and elegantly sidesteps the prequel problem because even though it's a prequel to A Quiet Place Part 1 and Part 2, it doesn't actually deal with the same characters. It's different characters, so you don't know what their fate is going to be. Kind of similar to the main characters in Rogue One. You know what the fate of like the wider universe is, but for those specific characters, you don't know what's going to happen to them. So yeah, the prequel problem isn't really a problem for A Quiet Place Day One. As for B, the whole it's not directed by John Krasinski thing, I honestly don't think that's an issue here. Michael Sarnowski, I think that's how you say his name, he's probably most known for the oddly moving and quite good Nicolas Cage movie from a few years ago, Pig. He's on director's duties here. He also shares a screenplay credit. John Krasinski's still involved. He shares a story by credit and I'm sure was one of the producers on the movie as well. So he's still involved in the movie, but he didn't direct it and he didn't fully write the script. So that was a concern, but having seen the movie, I honestly don't think it's an issue. If I didn't know it wasn't directed by John Krasinski, I could have easily thought it was directed by John Krasinski. So there's definitely some connective tissue in terms of the visual style and the visual language and the directing of Day One with the other two movies, even though it wasn't directed by John Krasinski. If there is A Quiet Place Part 3, which I don't know if that's been officially confirmed yet, but I would hope that John Krasinski returns to the director's chair for that. Speaking of hope, if you're enjoying this movie review, I would hope that you would hit that subscribe button and maybe hit that like button, you know, the notification bell, all the cool things. I forgot what the phrase is that everyone says. Smash that like button. That's what all the cool kids say. So yeah, smash that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell as well for whatever that does. Yeah, that's what everyone says. So do that. The sound design is, as expected, impeccable. I talked about this on a recent live stream. The sound design with A Quiet Place movies is the star of the show in many ways. When you're in the cinema watching one of these A Quiet Place movies, you're so conscious, you're so self-conscious of every little noise that you make, whether it's, you know, the popcorn, your juice shuffling in your seat, God forbid, a phone buzzing, anything like that. Any noise in the cinema, you're so aware of because you yourself are so quiet and so attuned to not just what you're watching on screen, but what you're listening to as well. So that's a testament to the guys who do the sound design and the sound edit and the sound mix and, you know, all the tech team that works on that, because yeah, it's, you know, if the sound design in these movies isn't 10 out of 10, these movies do not work at all. And the sound design is 10 out of 10. The score for Day One doesn't quite hit the highs of Marco Beltrami's score for parts 1 and 2. One of the main cues from part 1 is one of my favourite pieces of film music in the last decade, so it's a really high bar to hit. On composer duties for this one is Alex Grapsas. Again, apologies for the pronunciation. He does an admirable job, but again, doesn't quite hit the heights of the score for parts 1 and parts 2. Overall, I definitely did enjoy A Quiet Place Day 1. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. Definitely a recommendation. For context, I would give part 1 9 out of 10 and part 2 8 out of 10. I wasn't doing my YouTube channel back then when those movies came out, but yeah, I would score them 9 out of 10 and 8 out of 10 respectively, and 7 out of 10 for A Quiet Place Day 1. So it's not that Day One is a bad movie, it's a solid 7 out of 10, but if you're comparing it to part 1 and part 2, you know, it's not as good as them. It's good, but it's not great. Let me know in the comments below if you've seen this movie, what would you rate it, how would you rank it compared to the other two Quiet Place movies, and I will catch you in the next video.